All right, so on this episode, I have Jon Land, who is part of growth, director of sales with Avid Exchange, focused on the category of real estate, commercial real estate, multifamily. And we spend some time going over the accounts payable process, how to find value inside an organization, moving from sort of everything is working now, status quo, to reimagining work in a frictionless way that creates not only value for employees, the experience you want to create for them, but profitability to the company, from the CFO's vision to the CEO's vision, and ultimately to that controller who organizes and maintains this accounting, which is a steering wheel for our organization. As organizations move into the modern era, right, it stands to say that we need to know what's available so we can build a great, healthy organization. So have a listen to this podcast. I think you're going to find it enjoyable. And Jon does a great job communicating key ideas that can help you find money inside your company. Have a listen. All right, Jonathan, well, welcome in.
Good to be here, Patrick. Thanks for having me.
Yes, and so I know a lot of CEOs, CFOs are thinking about productivity. They're thinking about their business differently. I'd love for you to give our viewers and listeners a little bit about what you're working on, and maybe a little backstory of who you are and the products that you're bringing to market.
Okay. So my name's Jon Land. I work at Avid Exchange. So my role at Avid Exchange and what I do is I lead all of our embedded resellers as well as our construction division at Avid Exchange. So I've been at Avid Exchange almost 13 years now. So started when it was much smaller than it is today. We have almost 2,000 employees today. I think I was around employee number 44 in this in the grand scheme of things with Avid Exchange. But we do quite a lot in the world of AP automation. That's really what we focus on. Our goal is to give you time back. I mean, that's what automation really is. We're just trying to remove manual processes and give folks time back that they can use to do other things to help, grow their organization, grow their business, and help them, make more money or whatever they want to do with that time for that matter. But yeah, we automate the AP process, getting rid of all the invoices and all of the paper checks and making all that stuff electronic is really what we do.
Yeah, that's great. And what great growth. What'd you say, 44th
Yeah,
employee?
we were
That's
really
incredible.
small when I started, and now we have I think it's somewhere right about 2,000 employees. I mean, it hovers in and around that number pretty consistently for the past couple of years. We've ramped up quite a bit over the history of Avid Exchange. When I started at Avid Exchange, we didn't have the payments product. We just did the invoice product. So basically, when I say the invoice product, that means that vendors would send their invoices directly to us. So they wouldn't send their invoices to our customer. So they wouldn't send it to the property management company. They would send them directly to us. We would capture those invoices. We still do. I should say we did. We do. We still do this today. We would scan them. We would index them, meaning we'd pull off all that header level detail that's on the invoice. We would get that invoice fed into whatever workflow or approval process you wanted it to flow through. And it would flow through that approval process. Your team would be able to code and approve those invoices. And then once they're fully coded and approved, they would get electronically fed right into your accounting system. So it really takes away all of that manual entry and data entry and errors and stuff like that that you would generally see in a paper-based process. And then later on the lines, once we really hit our real big stride and growth, we rolled out a payments product, really completing the swing of automation in the world of AP, being able to not only capture the invoice, but also be able to facilitate the payment with just a click of the button. We can send out payments to the vendors and they can take those payments any way they want them. So if they want them as checks, they want them as electronic payments, whatever they would like, we'll send them the payment method they prefer and they can receive their funds. So it really kind of completes the whole cycle.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a few things there: redundancy, manual effort, and sometimes people don't enjoy this kind of work as well. But more importantly, fraud reduction too, I imagine, in terms of this process. That's got to be on the rise. Seems like this would be a good solution to
It
combat
is.
that. Yeah.
It is. We do just intrinsically how the software and how the system is set up reduces your risk of fraud. I mean, we have a lot of measures that are in place obviously from being able to track and receive the invoices, monitor for duplicate invoices that are flowing through that maybe somebody else, that maybe the vendor sent in multiple of the same invoices. So you're not necessarily going to have the opportunity to pay the same invoice twice, three times, whatever. So just because vendor for whatever reason fired over multiple invoices, or if a bogus invoice shows up, system will pick those kind of things up in the simple opportunity that this isn't a vendor in your system. So you don't have this particular invoice flowing through that you had nothing to do with, and people don't really recognize it. They just don't recognize not to approve it. So we really are, really shore all that kind of stuff up. And then as far as on the payment side, just with how it works and how we operate, it really walls off all of your actual bank accounts to prevent from, a lot of the check fraud that you mainly start to see more prevalent as opposed to there's still opportunities for payment fraud in all different shapes and sizes. We can have a whole long conversation about that. But the check fraud gets drastically reduced considering we have positive pay on all the payments that go out the door, plus all of those payments aren't being sent directly off of your checking accounts. So you don't have the exposure of somebody just intercepting that check, washing that check, changing that check, altering it to be fraudulent.
Yeah, it's interesting. And what you're spending time with customers, both prospective and your current customers, like what are you hearing from them? Where are we as an industry? Are you seeing, I mean, obviously more and more people are going towards this process, but we've got some work to do, right? Still?
Yeah, it's still something it's becoming in my whole life cycle of this. It's kind of funny how this operates. There's some reason that will push somebody or push a company to do this. Like there'll be some sort of, maybe it's a natural disaster. Maybe it's something that happened in the company. Maybe somebody stole a bunch of money. Who knows what it is? But in my personal life, it was Hurricane Sandy that hit New York City. That was the big, like the paradigm shift for me and actually Avid Exchange at that time, because at that time, the idea of not receiving the mail and somebody handling your invoices for you was kind of like, whoa, that's a little much. They just weren't there. And all of a sudden, Hurricane Sandy hit, washed out all over Manhattan. Half these companies that I was working with were like, some of them closed. They never reopened because they just washed out to sea, literally. And it was kind of wild. But then all of a sudden, putting things in the cloud, even though that's not exactly like the latest in technology now, that started to become way more prevalent. People wanted to do that because now all of their local servers that they were hosting are now, under 4 feet of water and don't work. So that pushed a lot of people, but it's just becoming more and more accepted. Just in your daily life, in your personal life, you've probably seen, reductions in the amount of mail you receive. You've probably started to pay less invoices with writing checks, probably pay a lot of stuff electronically. So that stuff just starts to bleed over into the business world as well, and things are becoming more and more accepted that way. So we've seen steady growth over the past 13 years at Avid with it become more and more widely adopted.
Yeah, I imagine. And it's interesting, those triggering events, we do tend to, there's a lot of things to prioritize in the business. And prioritizing something that we may feel like the process is working, right? So don't break it,
Yeah.
even though it's not productive, not financially viable, redundant, repetitive, exposure to risk, all these manual tasks and stuff. What are you seeing after somebody makes that move, the aha moments from going from an old process to this more secure and more productive one?
It's by and large, we get the response of, why did we not do this sooner? Like I loved it. So my roles have changed over the years at Avid Exchange. But when I was a sales rep, it was, why did you not make us do this sooner? Like I was trying. I mean, so I'm glad you finally did it. But I think that there's a lot more of I don't know if it's fear, but there's a lot more hesitation because folks associate something like AP automation with a big upheaval in their process and a big
Right.
like they almost liken it to a core system conversion, like changing from one property management system to another. And it's it's not even close. But they kind of feel that way because they've been
They
almost
assume.
conditioned with that because it's everything's always takes longer and harder than they ever thought it was going to be. But once we can implement this in, you know, and for all intents and purposes, a very short amount of time. I mean, 45, 60 days at the most to get everything up and running. Everybody trained, everything's working like it should. It
Mhm.
doesn't take very long to do that. And it's not and even though that is, that's not like an instant flip of the switch, it's not a lot of lift on our customers' part. We're doing a lot of this back end work where we're, putting together the workflows like they want them. We're, getting everything set up. We're importing their, chart of accounts, their vendor table, all of those things. We're working on putting all that stuff together for them and building their portals out, and getting all their users set up. So it's a lot of work that we're doing. But once it gets set up, it just starts to kind of, it'll just grow itself and it's very, uh, you know, once you understand how it works, it's very user friendly on being able to like move forward. It's not a hard process. It's something easy to adapt to. You don't have to send your invoices to us, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor. You just send them to this address or you email them to this address, and then we take care of the rest.
Yeah.
So it's not a huge lift.
And if someone's not building this technology or experiencing it, it's hard for them to envision a new way, right? I mean, are
Right.
you finding that you're almost consulting on the sales side of it, where tell us about your current process, how does that
Oh,
work?
100%.
And then coming up with roadmaps from, is it unique to every company or is it pretty standardized?
So the reason what'll push them can be unique. But as far as what we're doing for everyone, and I don't want this to come across as like, insulting or anything like that, it's generally the same. There's not, I mean, yes, some companies have different little idiosyncrasies than others in their particular approval processes and in their workflows, and we can accommodate for those things. This isn't something that's just, insurmountable that we can't figure out. The system is highly configurable and you can construct it any way you'd really like. So having that, having that advantage on our side definitely helps, but it's, kind of going back to a point you made earlier, our biggest competitor is status quo. And that's the one that really well, this isn't broken, so why are we fixing it? And you know what, you're right. It isn't technically broken, but you can make a simple change and become way more efficient at what you're doing and get a lot of time back. I mean, you're literally talking about getting 60% at a minimum of your time back that you're currently spending on doing a process and making it, better. But that's the part that like that's kind of the hardest part. You're working in a situation where somebody's been doing it this one way literally their whole life. And
Yeah.
you come in and you're saying no, or they take it as no, you're doing it wrong. And I wouldn't say that we're telling them they're doing it wrong. We're just trying to give them an opportunity to help yourself. And you can make this change and it's going to make, drastic improvements in your actual daily life, in your personal life. You're going to receive, some benefits of this, not having to, you're not going to be chained to your desk for everything that you do.
Yeah, I know that we as leaders have moved through different platforms from PC to internet to cloud and mobile, and we're just on constantly in this state of change. And those leaders that can navigate those waters and provide direction and profitability to a company during all those periods make the business more valuable. And so it's one of the reasons that we love partnering with you guys, is because we know, like, hey, companies are looking for better ways to make their company better and profitable. So there's a financial piece to this. Then there's an experience, right? And then there's the fiduciary around, like, there's technology that exists that can de-risk the organization. It stands to say, me as a leader should pay attention, get on a call with you, figure out, like, what do I need to know about this? Who else has done this? How did that go? What kind of impact can this make? And bring this into my organization, because our assumptions may not be true about how much time it takes, what that effort is. But at the end of the day, there's some investor there saying, I'm counting on you
Yeah.
to make this business better. Use the tools that are available to us.
Yeah, and that's what our job really is we're trying to give you the opportunity to come in, get comfortable with what we're going to do, make sure that we can, establish and build out what you're trying to solve. You're what might be bringing you or your trigger might be different than the next guy, but we want to make sure that you're comfortable with this and how this is going to work, and give you that education so you can make the right decision on what all you need this to do and what you really should see results from it by.
Yeah. And you guys have a great brand, by the way. I see your work. You guys show up in so many educational based ways to provide value. I think you guys have your own podcast. Was it the Net 30 podcast? Am I right?
Yeah, we have a couple as we've started rolling those out a little more consistently
Yeah.
as of late. Yes.
Yeah. Well, what a great name, right? Net 30. I mean, it kind of plays off the payment timelines that we all expect, right?
Yep.
Um, I will say, like, what are you hearing from CFOs? I mean, business leaders obviously are looking for more ways to make their business better. CFOs, the finance teams, clearly they must be getting excited about the work you guys are doing. Talk me through, like, what are the things you're seeing after people are engaging?
So after they're engaging with us and they really get through that implementation time frame and they've rolled the product out, they really start to experience, like, the true power and the true ability of the actual software and the service. There's a lot about Avid Exchange that's not just software driven, and that's one of the things that I believe gives them the most impact is there's a lot going on at Avid. I mentioned we talked a little bit earlier about the number of employees at Avid Exchange, and we have roughly 2,000 employees. Well, you don't necessarily need 2,000 folks to run a software company, but those people got to do something. And just in the simple fact of, like, our payments department has right at 500 employees in it that help manage and facilitate and get those payments through to the vendors. There's a lot of work that goes on with this, where so it's not a situation that they just hit the button and this payment goes out into who knows where, and hopefully it finds its way to whoever we're paying. We're going to make sure that it's going to get there. We're going to call them. We're going to follow up with it, because there's work that has to be done that's more than what at this stage in the game the software can actually provide in reaching out and contacting a supplier for a particular invoice that's getting paid. But I think one of the things that they come back to us with is just kind of the amount of time that they're saving, the amount of opportunity that they're being able to now roll out to their team to give them opportunities to do other things, the other projects they can start working on, and just like, you hear this all the time where we had to do this particular report or that particular report, like an accrual or something along those lines, and that used to take us a week, and now it takes us like 15 minutes to
Right.
make sure that we've got the report set up like we want it, and just boom, click, run, and it's over with. And that's a lot of time to be saving somebody on just one little example, but we have multiple examples of that, and just giving them the opportunity to access and like in the CFO level, giving them the visibility to know what's going on with their funds at any given moment. You can see what's going on at any time. You don't necessarily have to run down to some file room and pull together a report by pulling all the files and making copies and passing this on. That stuff still happens to this day, which a small part of me dies every time I hear somebody tell me a story like that. But it just gives them a lot more ease of use and feasibility to run their business and manage their money.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the ideal customer. Who's this for? Is there a certain market customer that's best suited to start, or is it all across enterprise as well?
So I mean, that's a great question, to be honest with you, because it well, I'll give you two. I'll try to answer this question as best I can, because we really can help anyone. Okay, and I know you don't want to get that answer, because that's like, well, okay, that's really awful broad strokes.
Well, I mean,
But
what that
it's
says is if you have 300 units, it still works,
mhm.
right?
If you
Or
have 300,000
300,000.
units, yeah. So, and we run into those exact scenarios. We work with some of the largest property managers in the world, and we work with some of the smallest property managers in the world. It really doesn't matter. The system is completely scalable, and it can be used for multiple. I mean, for any size company can really use it and benefit it. You can have the small company, the lean and mean guy that's looking to save money. He's looking to try and streamline everything he can, grow his business without having to add headcount. We're set up to work with those folks, as well as the one that has an AP team of 35 people in there that all of a sudden they just look around and they're like, we could probably use 35 people to do something else.
Right.
And what we can help them with being able to streamline and scale their own business. So it's really it's our average customer though, and we look at the world through invoices and payments, which is kind of a hard translation for folks that don't dabble in that on a regular basis to know. But to like, we'll ask people how many payments do you make a month, and you'll be shocked how many people don't have a clue. But generally, what we see is our average customer will be somewhere in the neighborhood of 750 to 1,500 monthly payments. Now that takes into consideration that pulls out the outliers, the guys that are doing 50,000, 100,000, and pulls out the outliers of the guys that are doing 10. But generally day in, day out, that's who we see the most of. But that doesn't mean that we can't help the guy that's doing 100 or that we can't help the guy that's doing 15,000, because we absolutely can. But that's just generally what we see.
What is and maybe you don't know this off the top of your head, but what is the amount of time for one invoice? Like, what do people spend on one invoice? Is that research
So
out there?
yeah, so it depends on how big the organization is as to how much time they spend on it. But generally, an invoice, they're going to spend upwards of, on a payment, they spend on an average of 7 minutes a payment. And
Hmm.
then on an invoice, they could spend anywhere between, you know, 12 to 20 minutes on average and you take into consideration everybody that's, got to touch it and look at it and go through it. And you just multiply that over, if you're doing 1,000, I mean, you're talking about a lot of time that's getting spent just looking at an invoice, where you can reduce that remarkably with automating this process.
Hmm.
So, and you can also translate that, because we can do full ROI analysis for customers if they want to, so they can understand, like, really what's this going to be worth to you to do it. How much you're going to save just in hard costs alone. You think about the hard cost on the payment side of things. You got stamps, you got microtoner, you got envelopes, you got check stock. How much money you're going to save just not having to do that again, just not having to worry about buying that near as much, if at all, and being able to automate that process. And then the soft cost piece of it, with what you're paying folks to do, and how you're paying the folks to put it together, and to put this, just to mail it out, and all the folks on capturing the invoices, and all that time that it takes them to get those invoices through and entered into the system and be able to be facilitated to be paid. So we can actually give you like a number as to
Yeah.
what that's going to be. And so you can weigh that against, like, what this is going to cost. And we've talked about payments. There's also the opportunity for rebates to be involved. We do have a lot of customers that take on receiving rebates in their deal with Avid Exchange, and that can outweigh a lot of the cost, and sometimes it can outweigh all of it, depending on how many payments they process and how much rebate we're able to collect for folks.
Yes, and the math seems simple with that analysis, right? The
Mhm.
question then becomes, how do you get out in front of it so you're not like the hurricane you mentioned, you're
Right.
reacting? Because I would imagine doing this in a state of planning is much more enjoyable than in a state of need where you're reacting
Yeah.
to a problem, and you've been told to do this, that type of thing. Which leads me to my question of, who are you talking to inside the organization to bring this in? Is it CFO? Like who do you want to spend time with inside the organization?
So generally, I mean, the controller, and this is just my opinion of it. You could probably ask different people at Avid Exchange, but the controller to me is that, like, ideal person, because they kind of sit right there. They're involved with everything. They're passing reports up to the CFO, but they're also dealing with all the accountants and the AP staff. So they can see both sides of the fence and they can understand and appreciate the value that you're going to bring to them. So the controller to me is the ideal customer profile that I think we want to talk to. But the roles can be vast in different organizations. And, obviously, further up the food chain is generally going to be the one that signs off on doing something like this. So, obviously getting buy-in from the CFO and their leadership the leadership of the organization is ideal. But we talk to AP managers, we talk to controllers, CFOs. We talk to a lot of different roles, but I would say that our ideal customer, we generally like to have the controller involved. That's a really good person to have a lot of perspective on the
Yeah.
value we can bring.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, the leadership team, if that be CFO, CEO, whatever that is, board,
Mhm.
I mean, they're looking for productivity, experience, value creation in the business. Clearly, the controller is organized to do all of those things, and it impacts their world so much, right? Like, I
Mhm.
imagine they're your best champions in
Yeah.
so many ways. But sometimes the CEOs and a lot of the leaders that listen to the podcast aren't doing that work, right? So it's like, do you want to be a status quo organization? Do you want to kind of stay where you are, leave some money on the table, or do you want to create some better experiences for employees, create some
Mhm.
profitability, and modernize the business? I think that's kind of the way I would be thinking about it if I'm a CEO today,
Yeah,
in that
you don't want to
aspect.
be in a scenario where we run into this and actually a lot, where we run into scenarios where the organization is going through a change, i.e., people are leaving or growing or whatever the case is, and they don't have like a true established process which you can make an Avid Exchange, and it can be an established electronic process that this is how the invoices are going to flow, this is how this is what happens. So you could, if somebody left and you brought somebody else in, this is how it works. We have a lot of scenarios where you got a lot of this like colloquial knowledge that when somebody retires or leaves the organization, along goes all that knowledge too. And they get kind of caught on their heels trying to figure out, well, how did we do this in the past? What is, there's no established process for this. What do we do now? And, that's
Right.
one of the things where, kind of to your point, Patrick, getting out in front of it will help, shore up those kind of conversations down the road.
Yes, and even with talent shortages, I would imagine people kind of see the writing on the wall in many ways with even AI around like, supporting in organizations like this. Like companies are not expanding; they're relying on like relationships that you've built to get the job done in a more technically advanced way. So I would imagine it's also hard to find more and more staff as well, and this provides, I think, I'm assuming some relief to that as well.
It does. It definitely takes a lot of the pressure off. I mean, you still need people in there to make decisions. I mean,
Right.
the software is not a decision-making piece. It's just going to give you the opportunity to take all that work off your plate, and you're just, as far as coding the invoices and all that kind of stuff, you're just checking to make sure this is right. You're checking to make sure you want to approve it and you want to pay this thing. And so it's not making the decisions for you, but you still need those kind of decision-making folks in there to deal with that. But yeah, outside of that, it definitely will take the pressure off of you needing large staffs of folks to handle your day-to-day business.
And I think that's another comfort level is you're still in charge of approvals and authority over the governance of the organ. Nothing really changes from what I understand with that. You're just kind of getting that middle piece redundant process out and systematizing it in so many ways.
Yep. We get asked that a lot. I don't want things get, just go out the door automatically. Like, well, good
Right.
thing they don't. So you're in luck. No, nothing comes through and gets automatically approved. Nothing gets automatically paid. So there's no way for anything to get set up to where something comes in and goes out the door and no one touched it. So you're still going to have people that are going to say, yes, we did this. Yes, we want to pay it.
Yeah. And so, John, what are the questions people are asking you if they haven't been through this process yet, right? So, and what questions should we be asking?
as far as getting looking into doing something like this, I think it's a little bit of like kind of looking back at the company that you're with and kind of going through a little bit of a checklist. Are we looking to grow? If we're looking to grow, then this is an opportunity for us to scale our business and be able to expand without having to add any back office staff.
Mhm.
I hate to do it kind of the fear mongering thing, but are we have we experienced fraud? Do we experience issues with payments? Do we experience issues with invoices coming in? Or do we have folks that are looking to leave? Are we in some level of a transition at our company? Is ownership changing over? A lot of times you have, children that are taking over companies for their parents that built the company. So there's a whole host of things that can take place that would be really good opportunities. Are we looking to move offices? That's one that I think is an interesting one that we I used to face years ago, and they're like, well, we want to hold off, we're moving offices. And my response would be, well, this is the perfect time because you're moving offices, you're going to tell every one of your vendors you're changing the address they're going to send this invoice to. Why not just tell them you're changing the address to Avid Exchange and then not have to tell them again? And then it's done. And then you can move offices all you want. So it's if there's any sort of like change, anything going on, or you're just sick and tired of dealing with paper, we would love to talk to you.
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk about that. How do people get in touch with you? Where can they follow you and learn more about what this product is?
Yeah, so I mean, you can reach out to Avid Exchange. I mean, obviously, avidexchange.com. You can obviously reach out to me. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. My name's Jon Land, Land. Been working at Avid for a while. Email address is simple, jland@avidexchange.com. But yeah, you can reach out to Avid Exchange, obviously through our website. If you're kind of catching this, you can reach out to me. We're at a lot of different trade shows, so we will take any sort of contact that you can find. But yeah, that's probably the simplest way. Go to the website and then you just request more information, and we have teams of folks that will reach out to you. Kind of find out a little bit more about you. You're gonna have a conversation with somebody. In our business development department, understanding what you're after, what you're looking for, and then they'll set you up with being able to speak with that because we work with a lot of different verticals at Avid Exchange. We got right at 10,000 customers, so there's a lot of different things going on. We have different relationships with different accounting systems. Some of them we're embedded in, some of them we're not. But they'll route you to the correct person, and they'll be able to take care of you and kind of get you in the process to see if this is a solution that would work for you.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think we did a great job covering some of the things that you're innovating in our space. Is there anything that we missed? Number one. Number two is tell us just final thoughts, anything you want to leave our listeners with.
Um, I don't know that we miss terribly much. I mean, obviously, Avid Exchange is a growing business. I mean, we've got a lot going on. We're constantly developing things. We're working on a lot of stuff. You mentioned AI. We do a lot with that. That's something that's really ramping up pretty heavily. In fact, Avid Exchange probably is one of the companies that's got the most to benefit from artificial intelligence, and the fact that we have millions and millions of invoices that come through Avid Exchange each and every day, and being able to capture that information even more accurately than we do today would definitely be beneficial to us, because there's a lot of systems in place that we have to make sure that we hold a really high regard to our accuracy. Um, but I mean, as far as you know anything else, you know, without going into like, specific
Yeah.
like systems and stuff like that, we're always working to grow our network, and we would definitely want to, hear from everybody that we can, so we can, do what we can to partner with as many folks in the multifamily and real estate industries, as for that matter, that we can. And we've done a lot with our integrations over the years. I mean, just in my time at Avid Exchange, I mean, it's like a quantum leap from when we started. So there's a lot, especially the embedded solutions are becoming really popular. And when I say that, that means that, like, if you used, let's say, RealPage, that the Avid's the payments piece is built into RealPage, meaning you don't leave RealPage. It's in RealPage. So when you select payments, you can send them right through the RealPage vendor pay, and that's powered by Avid Exchange. So we're the ones that are facilitating the payments. We're basically the engine behind it, but you don't ever have to leave. So it's not going to come across as some kind of bolt-on system, or it's going to be integrated fully into your actual uh, experience. So that's probably one of the most popular things that we have that's going on with our folks. But
Wonderful, wonderful. No, I'm
yeah,
really glad you shared that, because I think people, um, they want to know how this experience, and it's probably best to reach out and get in touch with your team, maybe do a demo, see how this stuff works from a visual, and ask the questions. I'm sure it's unique to every customer. And, hopefully this podcast has been helpful and would encourage people to take that first step, regardless of what the priority is today. Doesn't cost money to reach out, get in touch with somebody
right.
that can potentially help transform an organization. So it's been great sharing the time. We'll be following your success, and appreciate you showing up and creating the value for our listeners. Thank you, Jon.
Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you guys in the next one. Make sure you give them a follow and enjoy it. Go after it. We'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, thanks.